With our panelists, Murry from EigenDA, EigenCloud, Diego Kingston from LambdaClass and Aligned, Gustavo Gonzalez from Taiko, and Tamir Hemo from Succinct.
Hey everyone, I'm Matt, product manager at EigenLabs, working on EigenDA.
Hi, I am Diego. I am co-founder of Aligned and head of research at LambdaClass.
Hey everyone, my name is Gustavo. I'm director of engineering at Taiko. We're the first base rollup on Ethereum.
Hi, my name's Tamir. I'm the head of cryptography at Succinct, working mostly on SP1.
All right, so this panel is going to be a little bit different. So I like to run things kind of popcorn style. So what the format is going to be, I'm going to ask a question, and the first person to either like grab the mic or like put their hand up will answer. And then after that, it's up to you to like defend, rebut, add on, or we're going to start with foundational philosophies in progress. So first question, can you briefly restate your project scaling philosophy around Ethereum and highlight a recent milestone that exemplifies this vision?
I can go first.
There we go.
Yeah. So I think we've always been very Ethereum aligned in the sense we want to scale Ethereum through to its value. So that means we want to preserve Ethereum's not only security, which rollups already inherit, but also decentralization, censorship resistant, and liveness. And we think that's important. But we think also user experience is important, right? When we launched, we had really long block times. That's not feasible for a lot of users. So a few months ago, we launched pre-confirmations. And now we're working on the next spec of pre-confs, which the design is already ready, which is permissionless pre-confs. Any L1 validator can join. That means you get a lot better guarantees. And we're also about to ship our next upgrade, which is called Shasta, which reduces the cost of proposing 10x, which means base rollups are kind of on par with centralized sequencers, which we think is important so that people can actually use them. It's not like a research project anymore.
Yes, so Succinct is basically a verifiable compute company. So we care about making compute verifiable. And in blockchains, this is like a key, as we just heard from Will, to like scaling the L1 and also being able to interop with L2s seamlessly. You know, we're committed also to decentralization. So one really important thing is to be able to prove Ethereum in real time, but also in your house with the means, not in a data center, like we saw today, Cloudflare kind of like crashing. And just today, actually, we announced being able to prove Ethereum with 16 GPUs in real time. And that's like what you need in order to do it in your house. And there's just much more perf where they came from. So it's going to be even cheaper in the future. And yeah.
I guess we started off talking also both on L1, but also on L2s. And L1 is secure, decentralized, and is making steps towards continuing execution growth, but it has to be very secure and like careful in how it does it because there's a lot of things that are depending on it. We have L2s that are working on extreme scaling, and DA is a core part of that. A lot of people talk about execution, but in order for any of this to be made verifiable, you need to post your data somewhere. And on EigenDA, what we're working towards essentially, so we use a lot of the same tech that Dink sharding is implementing towards. So over the summer, we released EigenDA v2, and that's working at 100 megabytes per second on mainnet today. And the idea there is that you need capacity to be able to accept developers and accept new businesses on top of Ethereum, right? And that's what L2s are essentially doing today, and they will continue to do that. And that's kind of like the general direction is you can continue to scale execution. We also really need to scale DA. Ethereum is doing it on the L1. There are also a lot of use cases that require way more DA than we will be able to have in any reasonable time frame in the Ethereum protocol. So I think that that's kind of how I think about it broadly with DA, and then with like EigenCloud as a whole, the idea is, again, not everything needs to be a smart contract or a blockchain, but you needed to be able to do it securely or you lose a lot of properties that you get. So essentially building full stack, like verifiable applications is the design space that we're heading towards.
In my case, I think that first an image is worth 1,000 words. So this is our strategy.
I love it. Shameless shill.
Yeah, the idea is we have the Ethrex client and we are trying to solve like the problems we see at L1 and also at the L2 level. First, Ethrex is already doing more than 220 megagas. The idea is that the long-term roadmap that Justin disclosed, the idea is to get to 1,000 megagas, that is to say a gigagas, and then it means like 10,000 TPS for the L1. But at the same time, we have to make that launching L2s is really easy for institutional actors. They already have the distribution, but sometimes the tooling is not really good. So what we tried is, okay, we give you the whole solution so that you can launch, for example, your base rollup with just one click, or you can have your centralized sequencer if you want to have it. But the idea is giving these actors all the tooling they need to bring this. Of course, we know that ZK is the way to scale Ethereum. And ZK is not only important because of the execution part, but it also plays an important part in the future link consensus. And so we are like really happy to be helping on all these fronts, and also like providing a unified code for the L1 and the L2 clients.
Awesome. So I know you touched briefly on interoperability. So this brings us very nicely into the next question. So this is actually going to be a finish the sentence. So I'm going to give you a sentence, and the first person to like grab the mic, you have the floor. So the sentence is, the blockchain modular road relies heavily on interoperability. What's next?
Zero knowledge.
There we go.
Incorporating this directly, Taiko were the pioneers in the base rollup scene. I think that Justin is also one of the guys really pushing for this. And we have to make this easy because there will be lots of rollups. Each institution might want their rollup, and we have to make it easy so that you can move assets from one to the other.
Yeah, we're obviously strong believers in synchronous composability, and we're building towards that. We have Gwyneth on the Taiko side, and we're also trying to improve Taiko Alethea, which is on mainnet, together. But we think there's still a lot that can be done on asynchronous composability to get that better. Like we've invested in Open Intents Framework, which is an initiative that EF and some other players are doing. And we think that if you design your rollup in certain ways, being base helps that you sync the state of the L1 more often, and also that you share data and you share proofs and you share other stuff. That means that you can settle back to the L1 faster, and you can send messages both to the L1 and to L2s faster. So there are use cases that don't fully require synchronous composability, but would be a lot better if you can send messages like in a few seconds or a few minutes, versus sometimes you have all the way optimistic rollups where you actually take 7 days to fully verify a message on the L1 to like if you had it in like a few seconds or a few minutes. And I think that's an area that can be further developed, and I think we're trying to do that at least.
Angle, I mean, like specialized applications, essentially, right? We have Interop is in a pretty good spot. It is not perfect. No, a lot of the scaling efforts are getting there, like ZK is getting there. I think we're going to see just like mixing and matching essentially these technologies and like get back to the fun experiments that were originally desired or dreamed up in the Ethereum white paper.
I will push back a bit on this to make it a bit spicy. I think Interop is decent between the major L2s, but let's say you have like an idea, you launch your L2, you don't have any decent Interop between chains. So I think there has to be more open solutions, which might be bridging via the L1 if the L1 gets cheap enough that you can set a message in a few slots, or like intents or something like that. So I think the Ethereum community still needs to invest in this, because otherwise we'll end up like at 5-6 big L2s where you can actually move assets between, but you cannot actually do contract calls across L2s easily, at least now. Right?
Yeah, it's not necessarily easy. I don't think it's complete either. We need to spend time on it, but I think there's a lot of like pain points that can be solved with crypto that maybe haven't been like re-explored, and I'm like encouraging people to do that while Interop continues to improve.
Yeah, right.
All right. Also, this is meant to be interactive. So if anyone in the audience has a question, wants to like, intercept, raise your hand. Happy to take your live questions. So the next question for our panelists is, what are your approaches to securing modular components, whether that's through multi-sig, governance, economic incentives, auditing, or other mechanisms?
Well, of course, auditing is really important, having or using fuzzing to detect some bugs. Also, formal verification is really important. I think the Ethereum Foundation has done a fantastic job at developing new tools. That was something we were discussing the other time in Cambridge, and they have a very ambitious roadmap, but also develop a lot of tooling that can be used by any projects. Even if we do formally verify and everything, zkVMs are still prone to bugs. And so, for example, having something like multi-proving is really interesting. That's another way of securing things. And in fact, there is this idea in the Ethereum Foundation of coupling the different execution clients with different VMs, and typically it's the fastest VM with the slowest execution client, so that we get several proofs at the same time. And then it would be hard to get, for example, correlated bugs, especially if we rely on different, for example, ISAs or or other prover technology.
Yeah, just to add a lot to that, form verification is a really important way to guarantee security. We actually had a lot of efforts on that, where like the constraints of SP1 were formally verified in Lean. Obviously, I think the coupling idea is really important, but I also want to add to that, there's actually some intricate points in the client diversity discussion, because if you have to change too much underlying compiler infrastructure to make something work, that's something to note as well. Part of the magic of like a RISC-V based VM is RISC-V has a formal spec. Compilers are well used and audited components that there are some compilers that are formally verified. That could be an interesting angle for a client to try to do. But I think relying on these like battle tested components is really important. Like there's no adversarial thing that can be injected into a specific target that easily, versus something that's only used by an Ethereum client.
I think for us, redundancy is important. Like we want to allow users to move funds, withdraw funds from L2 to L1 as fast as possible. But of course, like if one of our components has a bug, we don't want that to put ourselves at a race side. So what we're doing is like 2 or 3 proof system. We have great partners like SP1, where we're doing secret proving. So at least until we get to formally verify something and we can like be absolutely sure this thing doesn't have a bug, I think that's probably the best way to go both for L2s and for the L1. Come from a little different angle then, because also on the DA side, we both have essentially a core protocol that's getting built out. So DA, decentralized network of nodes that are storing essentially like data sent. It's like KZG commitments made to it, sharded up amongst a lot of different people that you don't want to necessarily trust. And on like the core protocol side, right, you have to actually like audit these, like the KZG, like multi-proof system that we have, like our overall logic and the client itself. But then we have a different angle, which is also like practically implementing this. So we work with Succinct. So essentially the Rollup landscape, you have OP, let's say Arbitrum, zkSync, Linnea, and then they have derivations. There's actually 8 different derivations essentially of the Rollup stacks that we have to implement. So first we have to understand, what does it mean to have a trustless integration with a Rollup, right? If you want to build a stage 2 Rollup, you have to also have that at the DA integration. So we've created like both a framework ourselves, helped L2B on their DA integration framework ourselves, and we'll be releasing a more in-depth understanding of what it looks like. So understand the implementations of broadly of rollups, understand each of these stacks, and then there's like some of the boring parts are, one, it's all open source. I think that's a benefit of all of this code should be open source. Maybe it's not boring, but it's maybe spoken about portion that I think adds a lot of strength to these systems, is that anyone can look at it and audit it, but we also have to like actual audits around these. So we just completed our Hokulea, which is essentially our Rust like proving library, where we integrate Succinct and Kailua to be able to do these proofs essentially for like fast withdrawals. And thanks to Veradice over there on the practical side, I think that's also something worth to note, is that these things can be as well as friends over at Sigma Prime. I think that's like another aspect, is that you can have a theoretical like security, and a lot of these systems are very complex. So like GRC to the teams that are doing that too.
All right, so now is the time to shill your bags. So the next question is, can you share a live or near live application and then get into the infrastructure and the tech that powers it?
Yeah, we have already partnerships with, for example, Sobra, and they are offering digital identity in one of the states of Mexico. Then we also have with our partners a platform for doing revenue-based financing. And yesterday, Fede, in his talk at the main event, hinted at a new partnership with a big institutional actor in Argentina, IRSA. And the idea is to generate all the tooling to launch payment rails and other applications that are very much needed in Argentina. As many of you know, Argentina has a very high crypto adoption, And that is related to some of the economic situations that we've been through, and crypto solves real problem for us. We are going to be launching a lot of things because our objective is to provide this tooling so that you can launch your L2 as easily as possible. And yeah, you just have to follow Fede on Twitter and you'll get the latest news.
Yeah, for us, we already have like a few DeFi applications, and we have like a nascent gaming ecosystem, which is doing a lot of the transactions as well on Taiko. But I think what we think is the future is bright and the future is ahead. We're getting to a point that using Taiko is going to feel as cheap and as fast as most chains, but it will give you the guarantees of L1. And like if you are an application builder that cares about those L1 guarantees, today Taiko is the best place you can build if you don't want to pay the L1 fees and your application needs more scale. So we would love to talk to you. We think for now, like high value DeFi and institutional adoptions are probably the things that make the most sense. Like kind of the smart money that values these properties of the L1. And you don't want, like as an institution, usually that counterparty risk, right? That's why you choose Ethereum and don't go to a centralized L1. You don't go to Solana, you go to somewhere else. So we think you can value from those properties if you also build on Taiko.
Yeah, I can go from the DA side and also just EigenCloud side. So on DA side, Celo's been live for a while. I think that the trend that they also started going from an L1 to an L2 was a large engineering feat, but they also are targeted on stablecoins and have been driving that home, for the last, I don't know, almost like 7, something like that, years now. And they've been continuing to do that. So like hats off to them, as well as like Self protocol there. And then Mega ETH is also coming online. I think that's kind of what I was alluded to. We want a place such that Ethereum is the best place to be able to build the best applications. And frankly, there would not be like capacity to be able to accept some of these new use cases. So I think that's also a really exciting trend that we will see continue on Ethereum, is that you can compete on execution on the L2 side as well, even as L1 continues to scale. And then on the like cloud side as well, I think that's DIN, Decentralized Infrastructure Network, that is launched by, so Decentralized RPC Network. It's been talked about. We kind of saw some stuff at Cloudflare today affecting some RPC providers as well. And DIN's essentially commoditizing RPCs. That's like the portal to blockchains, and it's live this week. So that's pretty exciting, as well as Layer 0 launched essentially their insured like DVN. So bridging across different chains is also something that we see again and again. So I think those are a couple different angles that I'm excited to see.
For us, there is one of the most exciting things, of course, is ETH proofs and being able to like satisfy the requirements that Ethereum has put on zkVMs. There's also a lot of other interesting things. I think SP1 is really good at being generally just usable. So we have OP Succinct, which is like a first-class integration with the OP stack. And we have partnership with Arbitrum to ZKify their stack. And recently we kind of like managed to prove some Arbitrum blocks, and like they have some special things in their stack. I'm really excited about that because the Arbitrum ecosystem is also really big and has a lot of key players in it, like Robinhood. And another thing that's interesting is, ZK came a long way in performance, and now it's something that institutional clients are also interested in. And, once they see the magic of being able to prove things without revealing them, that's something that's actually like in blockchain less important to the main L1, L2 because they're transparent. But for institutional clients, it's sometimes important to like prove that they did something right, like that they did something they committed to without telling you their internal models of like loans or anything else. So use cases like these, I think, are going to be big over the next year or even more. So I'm really excited about that too. And just verifiable technology taking off in general, I think is really happening.
Yeah, I guess that we still have to solve the problem of privacy, but I am really excited, for example, that now Google has these verifiable credentials where you can prove you are above 18 years of age using zero knowledge. So I hope that we can see an acceleration of that. I don't know if Succinct has plans for client-side proving or improving that.
We've been mainly focusing on servers until now. We have some kind of like in the works thoughts about client-side. We have thoughts about it, but privacy, even if you're an institutional client, you can run a server. It's not like that your bank is running a server anyway. It's not that it's like so expensive for them to run a prover. but they need privacy, which is also something we have in higher latency with Groth16 wrapping, but we also going to add that to a low latency version. I think I actually have a little bit of I don't know if that's like a discouraging or spicy take about privacy. It's like, it's not really about the zero knowledge proofs are there or not. We know the technology is there. It's more about who has the data and who has the keys. If you're encrypting something, like, I think, or the protocol handling like the private state. I think that's a really interesting thing to solve. There's like all kinds of solutions to that. So it will be cool to see how do you do it in a decentralized way. That's really the interesting aspect.
Agreed. To touch on that aspect too, the aspect of DA where people are starting to look at, okay, I'm an institutional client, or I just want to have things done privately. You need DA still for liveness. So by privacy and DA would inherently feel like conflicting, because the naive solution is I'm a sequencer and I have the keys and I encrypt the data, I send it. Now, great, if I try to do anything and someone wants to challenge me, like, you can't decrypt that, right? So that's also something that we are like exploring and have some thoughts on how you can do this in a better decentralized manner. So agreed. I think that's like sometimes also often overlooked is like where is the key? Where's the data?
The hard questions of privacy.
All right, so final question. We're going to take a step back and talk about roadmaps. How do your roadmap priorities align with the broader Ethereum objectives? So this could be scaling, security, user experience, decentralization.
Yeah, I think that we are like pretty aligned with the goals of Ethereum. First, we have this goal of reaching the gigagas limit. We hope that we will be able in some time to reach, I hope, those goals. We are also making L2s really more usable, and the idea is then we can have all these. And also, I think that we like a lot collaborating with Ethereum as we can in the Lean roadmap. I think it's a really ambitious thing, but at the same time will make Ethereum really robust and also secure against quantum computers. And it's great to see that they have such an amazing team, and they are so open to help from others. And I am sure that when we get the release and everything, it will be amazing. So I think that we like being part of Ethereum and working together. So I don't know, count us in whatever adventure you have.
We're very excited about the L1 scaling. I think it's going to make the life better for all of us for building rollups. For us, I think the story has always been, how can we scale Ethereum like as close to its values? Like, if there's activity that you want the properties of Ethereum, but your application cannot pay for those fees, like, what is the second best place you can go? And we want to make Taiko that place, right? So our roadmap is, we're currently auditing this version, which we call Shasta, which will make base rollups very competitive with centralized sequencer, just in terms of proposing efficiency and prepare us for the next phase of pre-confirmations. And then we already have a design for post-whitelist pre-confirmations, which permissionless precons, which means any L1 validator can join. And we think that also gives back to the L1 in the sense that if you're running a validator today, like, your entire revenue is L1 fees, but you're capped to that, right? But if you want to get some extra revenue by participating, doing precons for Taiko, for example, and we have our base rollups, you will soon be able to do that. My request is that more people join this ecosystem. We had ENS yesterday announced they're going to use our stack to launch a base rollup. So sharing is loving. As more people join the kind of base rollup movement, you're able to share a lot more things. You're able to share the proof, you're able to share the data, and a lot more, which makes, like, I think, life's a lot better for everyone building.
Given the theme of this panel, I'd say scaling essentially is probably one of the biggest ones. And then also criteria that actually like meets, inheriting Ethereum security is like two aspects to it. So one, on the DA side, we're going to continue to push DA capacity. We want it to be the best place, like Ethereum, to be able to both scale itself, but also have alternatives. And I think that right now, I think like happy to work with also Ethereum DA community as a whole, as we want to continue to push that like envelope, and also broadly want rollups to be able to have the optionality to be able to solve the right problem and also do it in a way that gets like trustless integrations. And then maybe just like broadly, the reason why all of this, I'd say, also matters, or scaling as a whole matters, is that you start to get applications that are interesting, that can be in everyday person's life. It's cliche enough because like there's going to be a point where I think we're going to just start using things on a day-to-day basis. Congrats to Aave as well on their launch. I think that is a trend that I would like to see, is Web2 applications starting to consider building on blockchains, but their end user gets the benefits of the underlying security, but doesn't necessarily have to be tangled down in some of the complexity of it. So I think that's generally where I want to head on some of the UX side.
Yeah, and for us, the basic alignment with Ethereum is really important. Of course, being able to contribute to the core protocol as part of the ETH proofs effort is really key. But also, I think as a foundational ZK company, we can think of, we can take the next step and also think like, what are we scaling for? What kind of use cases are going to come on chain? Well, how are we going to build a system that's different than the current system, financial system that we want to replace? We don't just want like to clone the current financial system and just say it's on chain. We want everything to be verifiable. We want users to have guarantees. We want decentralization, censorship resistance. And like, we really want to make sure that the technology we build is true to these values. And I think verifiability in general, not just of a state transition function, is a key property that we want to preserve. So that's like our main focus, is like what needs to be proven.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That is time. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everyone in the audience. And yeah,